This is Seasons of Discontent with your hosts Rick Snyder and Matt Combs.
Welcome to Seasons of Discontent, Season 11, Episode 16, brought to you by Rick Snyder's Washington across social media. And I'm Rick Snyder.
And I'm Matt.
And we're back discussing all things Washington sports and life as part of the mighty Rick Snyder empire. And, you know, Matt, people said, you got to change the name of the podcast. Everything's going great. Like, how long you lived around here? Things don't go great forever. Don't worry.
Let him get through the season first before we change the name.
That was really funny. I mean, the
also
team,
called branding.
Commanders are 5-2. But you know, they just beat the worst team in the league. If it's not Cleveland, it's Carolina.
Yeah.
So we'll start to see. They're playing the Chicago Bears this Sunday. They are 3-point underdogs, which surprises me a little because Chicago hasn't beat anybody either here.
But I think it's under the perception that Jaden's not going to play, and I know we'll get to it, but I'm sure that after Dan's press conference today, and he shined a little light on Jaden's status, that the line probably moved a little bit. But yeah, I mean, look, realistically, have we beat good teams? I know they're still touting the Bengals as a good team. They're 3-4. Arizona got a big win over San Francisco, but I mean, is Arizona really that good? You know, we beat the teams that were in front of us that we were supposed to beat, and we were really competitive against everybody except for Tampa Bay. That was kind of more garbage time. The score is a little bit, you know, the score is a little bit less, you know, it's not really that bad as compared to what your eyeballs saw. But yeah, I mean, look, those are the teams on the schedule. It's not just because you win 5 games they're going to change the schedule on you. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and if they play Tampa today, they might beat them. You know, it's just
I agree.
You know, so we always pick the game for late season show. Pick it first because everybody tunes out after so many minutes. So I am going to say I'll take Washington +3, 27, Chicago 24.
Yeah, I think it'll be competitive. Can the defense continue to play the way that they've been playing? I mean, it was just pure domination over Carolina, and it started, you know, right after the third play with Fowler with a pick 6. This is what they always do too. They always play better when their starters go down. So they've lost John Allen for the season. I'm going to go ahead just to be different. I'll say Washington 34, Chicago 27.
Ooh, you're a Mariota guy. Okay, so we're both taking the over 45.
Am I a Mariota guy?
You must be. You know,
I am not.
Or that many points. Well, okay. For Jaden Daniels' status on Wednesday, as we're taping, Quinn said that he wasn't on the field Wednesday. They see what Thursday was like. You know, he said Jaden wants to play. So I know how this works. Jaden's gonna be like, "Yeah, coach, I can play. I can play." He's kind of holding aside. I can play, and then they'll say, "Okay, let's go out on the practice field. I want you to run right, throw left, twist your body. We'll see how it goes." Let's just see that. I see anything on your face. No, I think in the end, Quinn will not play him. He'll hold him back a week because he's doing this with other players. Yeah. He's not going to push him out there. You know, he's not, you know, George Allen running Larry Brown to death or those kind of guys, or Shanahan running Alfred Morris to death. I think they take a game. And Mariota looked good the last week. So, you know, this isn't a division game, even though it's a game that may come down for wild card implications, maybe. But I just have a feeling that Jaden's not. They'll go the whole week and then they'll say no.
Yeah, I don't know. I feel like, though, maybe they get pressure from the NFL because this team or this game was flexed. You know, it's been touted as number 1 versus number 2. You know, the whole debate all season has been, is it Caleb? Is it Jaden? But yeah, I can see that coming from Quinn and from Adam Peters. I think that obviously, Rick, they weren't supposed to be 5-2 at this point. They weren't supposed to be leading the division. They weren't supposed to be in the number 2 seed of the NFC. I could see them both saying, look, this is not just for this season. This is for the kid's long-term career. He is our long-term starter. We want him to play 10 years down the road, not just 10 games down the road. I can see that, but I can also see Jaden. Have they come out and said, I know it's not broken, but is it a cartilage issue? Is it a soreness issue? Is it a bruising issue? What is the issue with the ribs?
They said 0.
Exactly. Um, well, his mama came out and said on Twitter that he was fine. So I'm gonna take mama's word for it. With a rib injury, there are things that you can do. Obviously he can take a shot, he can wear a flak jacket, he can do all those type of things. The Bears defense is impressive and they do come after the quarterback. I don't know. I think it's 50-50 whether he plays. Honestly, Rick, from what we saw from Marcus Mariota last week, too, I haven't seen that Marcus Mariota since he was at Oregon. I don't know what Cliff did or what kind of scheme Cliff is running with Mariota, but the game plan didn't change. Mariota's just a little bit slower, and the ball comes out of his hands a lot slower. But they have pieces that can. I think the bigger issue is going to be Brandon Coleman. Coleman has been playing excellent left tackle. We haven't talked about him enough. I think him being held out this week will be the bigger issue. So maybe Luke can step up for one game and keep Mariota or Jaden clean. But I would say the Brandon Coleman injury is bigger than Daniels at this point.
Yes, Coleman is in concussion protocol. You never see anybody play the next week because it's so many days. And Lucas has been splitting some time with them, and Lucas's strength is being a spot starter, which is what they're going to ask. And then hopefully Brandon's back the next week. I don't know. I never know how to guess with concussions. Look at Tua, just showed up after 6 weeks with a concussion. So, but at least they have a spot starter. At least it's not a hole there. That's a big difference on there. As far as Mariota. Well, they went 3 and out his first drive, and then they scored 5 straight times, and then the game ended. So, there's nothing to criticize about his game so far. Is it the system that's doing this more? I hear that all the time from people. Sometimes it is. Especially Shanahan kept turning out running backs like crazy. They were good for about 4 years, and then they drop off a cliff. In Denver and in Washington, Alfred Morris, had 4 good years and then Zippo after that, lasted a few years in the league. So I'm not saying that Jaden Davis is a system benefit, but the great part is it doesn't work against him. And Mariota's kind of the same guy. He can scramble too. He's just 10 years older and he's not quite as good.
Well, I think it's very telling that when they knew that they were going to have the second pick and they knew they were going to get Jaden Daniels, one of the first free agents moves they made was Marcus Mariota, and it kind of left everybody scratching their head like, what Marcus Mariota? You're going after this guy on day 1, day 2 of free agency? Like, we could have got him at the end of the free agency, but it honestly, for Cliff Kingsbury and Adam Peters and Dan Quinn, that was the perfect backup, not only to groom Jaden, but to come in and be a spot starter if he was needed. And I think there was a little bit of method to their madness with the Mariota signing, and I think that Cliff is very confident with Mariota behind center. Now, granted, it's not an all season thing. We're going to see Jaden Daniels again, but if he is forced to play this week, I think Mariota gives you a better chance to win than Jeff Driscoll. He gives you a better chance to win than Sam Hartman. I mean, because I think he knows the system.
The crazy part is Mariota ran 11 times, and I thought, you don't have a third quarterback. He's not active.
They got an emergency.
No, he wasn't active. He was on the inactive.
Oh, geez.
So I'm like, wait a minute, you can't do that. That was a little interesting, but Mariota, I think he'll keep the trains going. One big thing happened this week. They cut Jamin Davis. I'm not really surprised at all, especially after he was inactive a couple weeks ago, and they tried to make him an edge rusher. This team needs an edge rusher, and yet he's inactive, which means screw it. And instead, they elevated the linebacker. Who am I thinking of? He's been out the whole time. The rookie.
Oh, Jordan McGee.
Yeah, so McGee's been hurt really since the very beginning of camp. He got hurt against the Jets in the scrimmage. So I haven't seen him anything. I don't know, but they love talking about him. Mm-hmm. So he took the spot, and they had to cut Davis on that. just another one of Ron Rivera's bust picks. Never, at best he got to be okay about a year ago, and that was it. And Quinn said today he just wasn't a good fit for them. So he liked Jamin. He didn't say it exactly, but I read through his words that basically Jamin kind of took it hard and was a little upset, but he said that'll fire him up to go somewhere else. Hasn't been picked up yet, but somebody will get him. Somebody will get an injury and need another linebacker. But nobody loves you like the team that drafted you in the first round. So if you can't please these guys, good career,
But these aren't the guys that picked him, and that's exactly why they did it. Ron Rivera picked him. Well, Ron Rivera is on television, so unless Jamin Davis is going to retire and go do television, I don't think he's got a fighting chance to be on this roster anymore. Well, obviously he doesn't, but yeah, he'll get picked up somewhere. I mean, he's a first round talent. There's always going to be a GM out there or a defensive coordinator that's going to say, you know what, Washington wasn't using him correctly. I'm going to fix this kid. I'm going to get the most out of him. And he'll go somewhere. He'll be on a practice squad, and then when somebody gets injured, they'll scoop him up, and he may play the rest of the season and then go into free agency next year, and maybe have to earn a spot. We've kind of seen this party before. You know what I mean?
Maybe his skill set works exactly for something someone needs. And so fine. I'm not saying he can't play football. I've seen guys.
Also, look, it's a shame on Ron Rivera. Ron Rivera overdrafted him. I'm sorry, Jamin Davis was not a first round draft pick on anybody's on anybody's board except for Ron Rivera. And I did the research. I don't have it with me. The guys that were picked around Emmanuel Forbes and the guys that were picked around Jamin Davis, it's just like, damn, like there's so much talent that you just overlooked to draft these guys that you thought you could get the most out of because you like their characters. It's at some point you have to say, look, I don't want Henry Ruggs. I don't need him doing 120 down the beltway killing somebody, but I need it. Sometimes you just have to kind of put that to a side for the talent. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Would Ron not have taken Dexter? I mean,
I don't think he would.
But Dexter was Gibbs had to work hard to keep Dexter under control about things, and there were other guys on that team too that they weren't all sitting in church with Darrell.
No, they were sitting in a trailer in the back of Redskins Park drinking beers.
Yeah, it's crazy. And you mentioned the defense earlier, and I wonder, is this an illusion the last few weeks because they have played two horrible teams in Cleveland and Carolina? Let's be honest, they're horrible teams, and they shut them down, and that's great, and that gives you some confidence to get better. And against Baltimore, they hung in there, on that, although they gave up 30. In this league, you're going to give up 25 more or less, so they got an extra one on them. But I think they're getting better in terms of understanding each other. You're seeing less broken defenses and missed assignments and that kind of thing. They're still not going to be the best defense in the league this year, but the pass rush is still what it is. But I think they're not as good as they've looked recently, but they're not as bad as they looked earlier.
Yeah, and this is not a playoff defense by any means. I understand the off season is or the regular season is all about offense, but when it comes down to playoff time, you got to have a stout defense. But I will say this, playing Carolina, playing Cleveland, playing these bad teams and performing well will definitely give this defense more confidence. I think that they can honestly sit back and look at the past 3 games and say they dominated Cleveland. They hung in there with a Baltimore offense that has the MVP of the league from last year and possibly could be an offense, the MVP of the league this year in Lamar Jackson, and they picked him off. They didn't necessarily hold Zay Flowers or Derrick Henry to low yardage, but then again, nobody's held Derrick Henry to low yardage this year. The guy's got averaging like 100 yards a game. He's going insane. I like I said, I think this defense, they're not a playoff caliber defense, but they're not as bad as they played against Tampa. I don't know. I think that they're still kind of figuring things out. We could tell Peters, Quinn, and Joe Witt brought in kind of 1-2 year stopgaps, except for maybe a Frankie Louvu who's got a 3-year deal. You look at the like guys like Cleveland Farrell and Dante Fowler and Dorrance Armstrong got a 3-year deal, but that was one of the guys that Quinn wanted from Dallas. Um, it's kind of just 1 and 2 year stopgaps, and that's pretty much all this team is, except for a few core guys. It's just a lot of 1 and 2 year stopgap players for Adam Peters to tweak the roster with better free agents and better draft picks, but they are performing. They're buying into the scheme, and from all of the locker room videos I've seen, Luvu is the leader of your defense. The guy is vocal. He gets them hyped up, and these guys are all playing well, and they're feeding off one another. So, can they stop Caleb Williams and the trio of wide receivers that they have in Chicago this week? It'll be a good test. I'll say that. Caleb has played well recently. They've got a hell of a tight end in Cole Kmet. They got, Maryland product DJ Moore. They've got some solid wide receivers. It'll be a good test for them, but it's a test that I think that they can win.
So Tony Kornheiser actually gave a hint that he might take the bandwagon, out of the rafters and bring it in. And it just made me wonder, is the fan boycott over? Last couple of games, they're playing Carolina and Cleveland, which are bad teams and did not travel at all. And so we still saw filled stadiums. That's the real difference. In the past, Dan Snyder gave half the stadium to the ticket brokers because he needed people in there. And that's why you saw so many opposing fans. Now they had 63,000 there. There were, I don't know, maybe 3,000 Carolina fans, if that many. So that meant 60,000 Commanders fans were there. A lot of them wearing Darrell Green jerseys.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought, wow, 2 straight games, the crowd's starting to come out, the town's starting to come alive. I know so many people that always told me, I'm never giving Dan Snyder another dollar. And that's why their season ticket list was down to practically nothing on there. I heard the day that Dan finally left, they sold 15,000 season tickets, which seems kind of hard to think you can process that many, but okay. And I mean, they're there. I mean, the fans are there. They're doing the wave. They're doing all these things. People are buying jerseys. They're not hung up on the Commanders' name suddenly as much. They're still singing "Hail to the Redskins" in the stands, and it's fine. There's no police that are going to change that. But they're getting used to the name a little bit. But it seems like finally people believe that this team is decent. Nobody's crazy enough to talk Super Bowl, but except Andy Reid was on my show the other day. But it just seems nice that everybody's back on the same page again.
What was the split for the Giants game?
I think it was about 60-40 maybe for Commanders.
Okay, so that's a bad divisional team, but obviously there's a lot of New Yorkers in this area down for work and stuff, and it's just a short train ride down to DC from New York.
And they're always here. So, yeah, that's my point too, is coming up.
That's what I was going to say. The big test is there's some big games coming up. You've got fans that travel well and that live here of other teams, Cowboys, Philly, Steelers. You've got some big market teams coming. That's going to be the true test.
Yeah, to me, the Steelers is going to be a real big test because Dallas is at the end of the season, and there's always Dallas fans, but that's not going to have a big playoff game. The Eagles fans, they'll be here too. But the Steelers game, they do travel well. It's only 5 hours to Pittsburgh. I don't know if they get their tickets earlier in the offseason, for this game. That's going to be real interesting to see what happens in that. If you see it like 70% Commanders fans, that means that the fans are back for this. And
I'll say this, Harrison team has done everything that they can to kind of shine the turd that is Northwest Field. I've seen videos of the player tunnel where fans are actually buying those tickets, which those are expensive.
Yeah.
You can't really compare. I wouldn't, and I would throw the Carolina game out. That was a very special day. That was a bridging of the gap between the Redskins and Commanders that we see today. I mean, hell, 100 and some alumni from the team was there, and I know we'll get to it, but they nailed they nailed every festivity that came with the Darrell Green jersey retirement, but we'll get to that. But Yeah, I mean, there's not a lot of Cleveland fans, I'm sure, that are around here. There was some blue jerseys in the stadium for Carolina. I did see that when they were doing the wave. Um, yeah, it's small market bad teams, When a bad Dallas team that's already out of the playoffs shows up at the end of the season, are there going to be 30, 40 Dallas thousand Cowboy fans there? Or are they going to give up by then? It all depends. It all kind of plays. It all has to kind of play out. I mean, I know Pittsburgh. I think they have the same record we do. So, they're in contention. Their fans are probably excited. It's once every 4 years we get to see them here. So those will be the tests.
Yeah. Now, Darrell Green's number 28, as everyone knows, was retired officially on Sunday. I was there for it in the Legends Plaza. I don't know, 500 people or so. Man, they were into it. And I've done this in my other videos, and I wrote a column for 1067 The Fan, Odyssey.com, AUDACY. You can read it there, where I said, I've known Darrell for 30 years, and we actually know each other well. And I looked at these people and said, they're looking at an idol. That's not just one of the old good Redskins around here. This is the guy. And he deserved to be the guy who was in. And then I wrote, who's next? And I had Larry. To me, there's four guys who could still have their numbers retired. And that's Larry Brown, Riggins, Monk, and Charlie Taylor. Monk was basically Charlie Taylor 2.0. There's a lot of similarity there. Both great players. All four deserve to have the numbers done. Riggo had the single most important play since World War II for this team, winning that Super Bowl and that run off Don McNeil. That set up everything. But I really thought about it for a while and said, it should be Larry Brown next on there. Now, he's the only one that's not in the Hall of Fame. He probably should be in the Hall of Fame on there. But Larry Brown was the man. He was an NFL MVP, four-time Pro Bowler, two-time All-Pro. And he's played his whole career in Washington, unlike Riggins and Monk. Taylor played his whole career too. And so for that reason, too, I would put Larry Brown in next. And there's your age difference. That's the old people who remember RFK in the old days. They're Larry Brown people.
So we have the no list. Obviously, the sevens, the nines, the 17 was a no. You have to ask permission for it. 21 is on that list now. What are the official numbers that are retired? I know it's obviously Sammy Ball.
Right. So Ball's 33. But here's the thing. Ball's number was never officially retired, because what happened was when he retired in 52, George Preston Marshall said, no one will ever wear your jersey again as long as I'm owner. Okay, he dies in 1969. In 1973, Dwayne Thomas from the Cowboys comes to play for Washington, and he wants to wear it. And they said no. And he said, can't you call Sammy Ball and ask him? So the equipment manager calls Sammy Ball and goes, hey, Sammy, guy wants to use his number. Sammy goes, no problem. Go ahead, let him. The guy hangs up and says, Sammy says no. And they didn't give it to him. Now, that number could have been given out because it wasn't really retired. I think they should have a retirement ceremony and end that crap too. Bobby Mitchell's number at one time was given to some scrub during training camp.
Yeah.
When Sean Taylor's number was retired, the old players were ticked because they felt that some legends of this team were overlooked. And it starts with Bobby Mitchell. Bobby Mitchell, first black player. Bobby Mitchell had to put up with so much hatred in this town, too. They used to have Run Bobby Run bumper stickers you put on the front of your car. I mean, look at that craziness.
Yeah.
So Mitchell was a Hall of Famer on and off the field. I'm glad they did him second. Sonny was third. Now Darrell's fourth. To me, Larry Brown should be fifth, but I have a feeling it's going to be Riggo.
Honestly, for me in my 40s, it's Riggo. Riggo and Monk. I don't know as much about Larry Brown. I don't know as much about Charlie Taylor. That was way before my time. Obviously, I know their stats. I've seen clips, but I never got to see them play. I never really saw Riggo. I saw Monk play. But yeah, Riggo for, like you said, it's one of the most important plays in this football team's franchise's history. Riggo, and not only that, but the personality that is Riggo. I think the only thing you have to worry about with Riggo is wearing the Redskins blazer that he wore. If they don't want to show the logo, the old logo. He's not going to call them the Commanders. He's not going to let you sell Commanders John Riggins jerseys. So yeah, for me, it's Monk and Riggo. I think the Sean Taylor thing kind of, honestly, Sean, I loved Sean when he was here. I thought he was a great player, and obviously he was cut. His life was cut tragically short. I don't think you'd necessarily retire Sean's number, but they put it on the no list. But yeah, for me, it's definitely Riggo and Riggins and Monk.
Yeah, I mean, if you saw Monk, you saw Charlie Taylor, basically. And Charlie Taylor retired as the all-time receptions leader in the NFL when he went out. Him from Sonny, they were just magical. So I think that's the four. All right, before we walk out, I get to brag. I got invited to Ted Leonsis' big fancy gallery opening yesterday, where they had this. Harry Benson was this famous photographer who photographed 13 presidents and anybody famous, and he was the People magazine, all those things. I mean, he was it. And he's still around. He's 94. And they had a huge gallery open right next to Cap One Arena. So it's free if you want to go. It's on the 7th Street side, just to the left of Clyde's. So it's steps away. It's open during the day, and then it's open until 7 on game days. And it was a really cool event. I mean, next to Leonsis, who's a billionaire, this is my partner. He started eBay. You're like, whoa, there was some money in the room, and I got to talk to some of them. It was cool. And so if you do go to a Caps or Wiz game coming up for the next year, you'll see this. It's really the playlist. It's not music, but it's like the playlist of my life from the 60s. I mean, this guy was standing next to Bobby Kennedy when he was murdered. Bobby Kennedy says, "I'll see you in Chicago," and then 2 seconds later, bam, he's shot to death. He would have become president, over Nixon, in my opinion. So it's really a cool event to go see. If you go to games, go see the art gallery since it's free. Why not? There's a new White House replica too, over on 17th Street. That's free, hard to believe. And it's an awesome representation of the White House if you want to go see that. And if you want to go on a tour, you can always get me at monumentalthoughts@gmail.com, and I'll take you around town for money. So
yeah, Rick wouldn't take me because of the hat I'm wearing.
Yeah, that would not go over real well.
I wouldn't have gone over well with Ted, huh? No, actually, it's funny. Two of the people that we've talked about, I've met Darrell Green, and and I'm not saying I went to like a meet and greet. I met Darrell Green. I read his meter when I worked out in Virginia, and then the same thing with Ted. I met Ted right after he bought the Capitals. He was in the driveway with his son playing basketball, and I went up to him and it said, "How you doing, sir? I'm from the company I work for, and I'm here to read your meter." And I walked up and I read his meter, and I was like, his voice sounds really familiar, because he was calling into Elliot in the morning at the time. So I looked at my handheld and I hit the little name button and it said Theodore Leonsis, and I was like, I know that guy. So yeah, I mean, it's just kind of funny. I as a peon and nobody, the two guys that we've talked about on this show, I've met.
Oh, yeah, they watch the show, believe it or not. I talked to several people with Leonsis around. They know my 2-minute shows and all that. It's really funny how that show. My 4th anniversary of all my videos that you see are coming up in about 3 weeks. About 20 million views over the 4 years. Kind of amazing. Going to do some new things in the spring this year. So keep watching. I appreciate everybody doing that. And
and I know we don't really talk about them a lot on this team, but Ted is pretty much, the reason for the revitalization of sports in DC. For what he's been able to do when he bought the Capitals, and what he's trying to do with the Wizards and everything like that. Plus, he's very innovative and he's forward thinking. I mean, he's got the esports team, which I don't know anything about, but he was forward thinking enough to purchase an esports team. The guy really, I don't think he gets enough credit, because he's it's not football, and it's not baseball. He owns the hockey team, he owns the basketball team, he owns the women's basketball team. But Ted should get a lot more credit than I think he gets.
Yeah, if they could get that crummy Wizards team to be any good.
I know you didn't say that to his face.
No, we didn't talk about the Wiz. We didn't actually talk about sports at all on things. We were talking about.
I would have said, "Hey, Ted, fix the Wizards."
Yeah, really. No, we talked about the gallery and the pictures and all that. Ted's a really smart guy.
Yeah.
And just for all of you who are older, if you remember getting those AOL discs in the mail all the
That's
time,
Ted.
that was Ted.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, I made his money, off AOL stuff. And he's a really good, down to earth person. I've always enjoyed Ted. I just wish he had owned the Commanders instead of that guy we had, but whatever.
Nah,
all right.
He didn't have that kind of money at the time.
Yeah. All right, we're out of here. Hopefully we're back next week with a new show of winning again. You never know. But I'm Rick Snyder.
Hey, look, we're free rolling it, Rick. We've already won. Look, we're 7 games into it, and we've won more games this year than we have all of last year. We free rolling it, buddy.
Yeah, it'll be house money time now.
Exactly.
They might get 10 wins. Who knows? We'll see what happens.
We never know. All right, I'm Matt.
I'm Rick. See you later.
Bye.
Thanks for listening to Seasons of Discontent with your hosts, Rick Snyder and Matt Cohn.